White will inbound. It's off to Smart for the 7th game. No, could have been tipped in, but the buzzer sounded. The light was on. It'll be reviewed.
I don't think he got that in time. Great effort by Derek White.
And didn't I say you have...
Oh, they're saying on the floor, they're counting it.
You have to protect the offensive rebounding.
Oh, he got rid of it.
He
That's
sure
a
did.
Celtic win, and we're going to Game 7.
The Celtics are going to win. There's a Game 7 back in Boston.
Ruling on the floor is good basket. The play's under review.
White.
What a finish to this game.
There's no way that actually just happened. So whoever wrote the script for this year's playoffs really decided that they were going to put out an instant classic with this one. In a game that I think is fair to say the majority of people thought Miami was poised to win, they didn't. They were 0.1 seconds away from the NBA Finals until a guy who hooped at a culinary school in college named Derek White said, "Oh no you don't," and scored one of the most clutch tip-ins I have ever seen. Seriously, it couldn't have been closer. Taking a step back from this historic ending and everything it means, this was a really good game. The Boston Celtics held command throughout the first 3 quarters, we'll talk about the 4th in a minute, but the Heat's rotation guys played incredible. Most notably was Caleb Martin, who ended the game with 21 points and 15 rebounds, along with 4 threes, and I think you can definitely make a case for Caleb Martin having been the best or at least the most consistent player for the Heat this series. And when you factor in the defense he also brings, including a block and a steal each in Game 6, Caleb Martin is one of the most valuable assets that the Miami Heat have. And then there's Gabe Vincent, who's been extremely important for the Heat this playoff run, but especially this series. His presence was clearly missing in Game 5, which he sat because he rolled his ankle in Game 4, but it really felt like he hadn't skipped a beat because he delivered 15 points and shot 50% from 3 as well. Overall, Miami's rotational pieces were the only reason it remained remotely a close game throughout the majority of this one. Except Duncan Robinson. He sucked and missed 2 really important shots, including an open go-ahead 3 that could have sealed it, but regardless. This unfortunately brings me to Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, who had I think 5 points each in the first half. Starting with Jimmy, he shot atrociously this entire game. He got it going a little bit in the 4th quarter. He hit a massive 3-pointer and had a tough and one, but overall, 5 for 21 from the field is just unacceptable in a must-win game at home from your main guy. Watching him play, you'd probably be astonished by the fact that he ended up with 24 points, but that's until you realize that it mainly came from free throws, which, you can argue is important to keeping your team in it. As for Bam Adebayo, just another terrible offensive performance. 4 for 16 shooting, and he got f***ing blocked at the rim by Al Horford. I can only imagine that for the Heat to watch Father Time Al Horford get up enough off of like 1 or 2 steps to stuff Bam Adebayo's dunk attempt must have been just the most momentum zapping thing that could have happened. As for Boston's camp, as I said, they played well until the 4th quarter where, like they do so many times, completely shat the bed and took their foot off the gas. I'm not going to talk about it too much right now. I want to wait to see how this series falls after Game 7, but their inability to keep their shit together when winning is truly the Achilles heel to this team in my opinion. They can score, they can defend, but when it gets down the stretch, my god do they get lazy and lose discipline. The biggest takeaway for me, honestly, especially considering the Celtics are walking away with a win in this one, is they did not shoot well. There's some stat that the Celtics are like 22-4, something really overwhelmingly positive like that, when shooting 40% or more from 3, and I've talked about how this team lives and dies by their 3-pointer a lot. Game 6 did not see Boston shoot the ball well. 7 for 35, 20% from 3, and they still won it! I mean, Miami really has to feel sick about that one. Although in fairness, probably not as sick as they already feel, having shot 35.5% for the entire game. I think if the game didn't end in the wild and dramatic fashion in which it did, Boston pulling off a win in this one would be a way bigger deal as far as Game 7 goes, because Miami would have to reconcile with the fact that the Celtics can beat them even when their 3-point isn't falling. But again, an ending like the one we witnessed is hard to get mad at even when it happens to you because it's just such a chance event. Only person you can get mad at really is whoever failed to cover Derek White after he inbounded the ball. So yeah, Game 7 and a chance at history. Out of the 150 times a team has faced a 3-0 series deficit, there have been only 3 times in NBA history that a team has come back and forced a Game 7. Those being the first round matchup between the Dallas Mavericks and the Portland Trail Blazers in 2003, the Western Conference semifinals between the Denver Nuggets and the Utah Jazz in 1994, and the 1951 NBA Finals between the Rochester Royals and the New York Knicks in a 7-game series of New Yorker on New Yorker violence. The one thing they've all had in common is that the team that went up 3-0 to begin with won the series in the end. The asterisk to that fact, however, is that all 3 of them also had home court advantage. What makes this Game 7 so interesting is that it will be played at home for the ones who are trying to complete the ultimate comeback. Boston losing both of their home games as part of going down 3-0 is entirely unique and I think will make a massive difference. The Celtics have not been good at home throughout these playoffs, but this is such a specific circumstance that I'm not really sure that trend matters. They have all the momentum in the world going into Game 7 and probably themselves feel like they've cracked the code to beating the Heat after remembering how to play basketball like themselves. This is why Game 6 was so important for Miami, because having to go back to Boston one last time in this context, I think it could be clipped for them. That's honestly the extent of the analysis I can offer. I'm a firm believer that anyone can win a Game 7, and this series in general has made me question whether I know shit about ball, so it's completely up in the air as far as I'm concerned. One thing that's interesting to look out for in Game 7 is foul shots. Boston only took 5 more free throws, but it definitely felt like getting to the line was more in their offensive scheme than it was for Miami. A lot of Heat fans are upset with the amount of calls the Celtics got, but honestly, I think it mostly chalks up to them being a lot more aggressive towards the rim, and that'll just equal more calls, even if a few are embellished or even straight up bad calls. So we'll have to see how much pressure Miami puts towards attacking the basket, and if they're able to get to the line, because that could honestly be the difference. I'm torn between wanting to stand by my original prediction and say I just feel like it should be impossible for the Heat to lose 4 straight, and acknowledging what I've already seen over the past 3 games. It really feels like a return to form for the Celtics, where they can just overwhelm a team with their defense and then their transition offense, and if that's how they were playing, I said this series would be over quickly in their favor, but they've just been so damn inconsistent on a game-to-game basis. The optimistic part of me would like to say that Boston has regained their rhythm and remembered that in every way except for coaching that they're a better team than the Heat. So with all that said, I really think the Boston Celtics are going to make history and come back from a 3-0 deficit to go to the NBA Finals. I'll put it this way, I don't think the Heat can beat the Celtics, but the Celtics can definitely lose to the Heat. They're a team characterized by their ability to get in their own way, so we'll just have to see. It's bittersweet to say that a team like the Miami Heat, who themselves have been in the midst of a historic playoff run, could end with them being very much on the wrong side of a historic moment, but I can't feel that bad because they've had an impossible amount of chances to seal it. This series has given me so many enjoyable moments and has really captured what I love about the game of basketball. The only drawback is I'll probably have to rewrite like half of my finals preview video, but whatever, that's the cost of doing business. Either way though, I couldn't be more excited for this Game 7, and if you're really curious, you can go follow my Twitter and watch me frantically live tweet about the game. But with all that said, I hope you liked this video. Enjoy Game 7 everyone, I'll be back soon, but until then, take care.